major leaders of the community have all stood up and said that if a society cares, you've got to give back.
It is probably very unique in the numbers of people and organizations that are working on all sorts of incredible projects and works globally.
Look back and say, why did we ever think those Millennium Development Goals were hard? That actually together we achieved them.
We're supporting getting involved in achieving the Millennium Development Goals because we believe that this is one of the most compelling agendas that the world is facing.
A 13-year-old girl will determine the future and the path of poverty or growth and prosperity for a country.
So if you want to consider it an evolution of capitalism that has a social conscience, yes, it's capitalism with a social conscience.
Today's philanthropists are generating powerful stories of global development, stories of leadership, innovation, and social responsibility that are inspiring global transformation. These are the stories of Rainmakers. As the 21st century dawns, the era of generational poverty that has gripped lower and middle-income nations is at a crossroads. The emerging model of global development inspires a new direction, one that provides the necessary research, resources, and support to people so that they can not only feed their families and educate their children, but grow a business and transform their lives. This new standard, designed to end generational poverty, has been coined philanthrocapitalism.
The bottom line of social enterprise is you're creating social benefit as you're creating profit. And that's a movement that's come about largely because of an increase in the interest of the millennial students who have a huge value around giving back and creating value socially right now. So we have students who are coming into our programs that's the way they want to express themselves professionally. And at the same time, more and more organizations are understanding that creating social benefit actually allows them competitive advantage, particularly in these emerging markets.
The new model of philanthrocapitalism is, in our view, comprised of three kinds of rainmakers. One kind of rainmaker is the philanthropic organization that has a clear vision, mission, or innovative idea that will support transformative change for people in lower and middle-income nations. But a great idea or organization cannot thrive without the financial support of another kind of rainmaker, the donor, who recognizes that even a visionary organization needs funding to make great things happen. And our third kind of rainmaker are the people who embrace opportunity and turn their lives from one of generational poverty into one of economic and personal security and hope for the future. And in doing so, not only improve his or her life, but transform the life of their family, their community, and ultimately an entire nation. The Rainmakers documentary series, coming to KBTC in 2011, will span the far reaches of our planet, focusing on stories of rainmakers who are supporting directly or indirectly the United Nations Millennium Development Goals, due by 2015.
In the year 2000, the UN thought that it was time to create both a measurable set of goals and a measurable set of targets and interventions that the world could all rally behind. And it was important for two reasons. Donor countries needed to see that there was a plan so that their dollars were being spent effectively. And countries who were receiving the funds and receiving assistance had real plans that they could develop to make better policies, to deliver better services, and show how they were going to impact their own citizens. So the goals became a roadmap for eliminating poverty, for reducing maternal deaths, for ensuring that all children had access to school, for ensuring gender equity. And so the goals were adopted in 2000. It's taken us 10 years for the goals to be really adopted as the world's goals. Not just the UN's goals, not just the member states' goals, but now they are truly the world's goals.
The first episode of Rainmakers will focus on women and girls. Investing in women and girls has a much greater impact on local communities than almost any other investment, creating change that ends the cycle of poverty in entire regions.
When you look at the research of the World Bank, invest in women and girls, give them money, 90% of that money will go on their families and on their communities. Sadly, as a mother of 3 sons and only 1 daughter, investing in boys brings a return of 30 to 40%. But for so many of the girls, of course, they never get the chance to get that investment. And that's what we need to tackle. We need to tackle this fundamental idea that girls aren't worth as much as boys. But across the world, the problems that arise when you don't recognize women as equal players with men are very acute, because you're absolutely losing the talent and skills of 50% of your population.
What happens in other parts of the world is not something that the United States isn't affected by. The most dangerous places in the world are often the places most dangerous for women, where women are oppressed and extremism finds its roots. And so much of the stability of the world, the potential of the world, the emerging markets that are so important to all of us, all of this is tied up in the fate of half the world's population.
There are so many challenges where I come from for a girl child like me, because girls are viewed as a source of wealth to the family, and most families still don't value education for girls. They think it's better to take a boy to school than to take a girl to school. So I really had to convince my parents and my grandparents that I had to go to school, because where I come from, I was the only girl who was going to school.
Unfortunately, there are many areas around the world where girls are still married at ages that are frankly very shocking. 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 years old. There's places in northern Nigeria, there are places in Ethiopia and India, all around the world where this still occurs. So it is critical we get to those girls and we give them the resources they need, and we help work with communities so that they can make the choices that give those girls opportunities and to be in school, realize their potential, as opposed to being married very young and having their life really take a very dead-end path for them in terms of realizing their potential.
When I graduated from my primary school, then before I joined my high school education, we were several other girls in my class, but many of them fell through the cracks of poverty, and then they were married off. Some have 4 kids right now, and they're not very old. They're 18, 19, 20 years old. So I get to talk to them so much because I believe they are still my friends no matter what they went through. That doesn't change the relationship between us. And they share with me their experiences, what they go through. They don't have jobs, they don't have skills that can enable them to get a job anywhere. So they're just there at home. They have to wait for the man to provide the food. And this really discourages many women, because if the man is the one providing the food for you in the family, you have no say. He controls everything that you do. He'll say you sit in the house, he'll say you walk out anytime, and you have no say. So I really feel with them, and they really look up to me as a role model, and I really want to work hard so that I can be able to help them. Though I can't be able to change so much in their lives, but what I achieve, I can be able to impact their lives.
Sustainability in the Global Give Back Circle is embedding a give back ethos so that the girls that are beneficiaries now are actually benefactors. So every year when they do that progress report on giving back, they're empowered. And this empowerment we're building into them through high school that's the empowerment that's going to enable them to go for a job and an interview and a scholarship to the United States, complete university. They're conditioned now to giving back and doing it well and implementing something well.
After my graduate school, 20 years down the line, I'm definitely going to be a pediatrician, and I'm going back to my country. I think this is a commitment that I'm making to my country, because all the goodwill people have helped me in my country, and I've been able to go this far. So I'm committing back to go to my country, and I'm going to work in my country. And why I really want to be a pediatrician is, through my life, I've really seen what children in Africa are going through. It's so hard to access quality healthcare if you don't have money. And why I'm being a pediatrician is because I want to be able to help even the less privileged to get the best quality healthcare. So 20 years down the line, I'm going to be in Kenya.
No doubt that Vivian Onano is a rainmaker. Her story embodies the spirit of the global transformation that is changing the face of philanthropy. No longer a short-term quick fix, but a sustainable, scalable transition to a powerful economic and social transformation that will lead to a more secure and prosperous world, not just for Vivian and her village in Kenya, but for us all. The creator of Rainmakers is corporate social responsibility visionary and television host Stan Emmett, who, along with Rainmakers executive producer Gail Romero and filmmaker Greg Walsh, has been in development on this groundbreaking documentary series for more than a year.
For years I worked in corporate social responsibility, and what I saw here in the Pacific Northwest were these wonderful organizations that had a global view. They're actually doing great work around the world, but nobody knows about them. So I also had worked in television for years. So I thought, okay, let's put them together. Let's put the incredible stories from the work that these organizations are doing with the storytelling capacity of television, and that's what came together in Rainmakers. And as it came together, what I'm hoping that Rainmakers can do is inspire people to learn, inspire people to engage, inspire them to act, and when they do, we're all going to help create better futures and better opportunities for people throughout the world.
Rainmakers TV has a great opportunity. It's not a 5-minute piece that quickly encapsulates an issue and a solution. This is an opportunity to actually see the sun rise, see the life, and see the changes that are resulting because of great collaborations.
Following the initial episode on women and girls, Rainmakers will be producing a show that focuses on the remarkable success that microfinance and land ownership programs are having in emerging economies around the world.
The benefits derived from getting property rights in the hands of women are tremendous. Land ownership or secure land rights to a piece of land leads to higher productivity, well documented, leads to better nutrition for the children and for the family as a whole, leads to much more investment in the land, as you can imagine. If you own land, rather than when you don't own it, you're willing to invest it and make the kind of long-term productivity-enhancing investments. But it also gives people access to credit, gives people status within their community, which is very, very important to them. In fact, when we ask about all these different types of benefits I'm mentioning, when we do interviews at the grassroots and ask people who have gotten land ownership, which of these is the most important, the status and kind of recognition within the society, the dignity aspect to it is often the most important. It leads them to have the confidence to engage in local politics, in local kind of market transactions. It's transformative.
We've worked in Vietnam, and Vietnam is an entire country of entrepreneurs. And the minute that they get the minimal amount of education or skill building necessary in order to thrive, they go straight to work in developing their own company and their own organization. They're one of the most admirable entrepreneurial cultures in the world right now. There's this misconception that people in emerging markets need to be taken care of. And it's an inaccurate perception. They're quite capable of taking care of themselves as long as they get the minimal amount of skill building they need and the minimal amount of capital to put them in charge of their own lives. We work with a large number of social businesses that have been funded by venture capitalists. And some of that capital that they're investing is patient capital. In other words, they're not looking for an immediate return. They're not looking for a quarterly return like what much of capitalism is about. They're looking for a longer term return on their investment, and they're lending that capital specifically in a way that is going to assure social benefit. So if you want to consider it an evolution of capitalism that has a social conscience, yes, it's capitalism with a social conscience.
People have a demand for credit, and they have a demand to put their savings in a safe place. So if there aren't enough good jobs to go around, you've got to be able to create your own job, and that's the power of microfinance. BRAC, has 125,000 staff. It has over a $500 million budget. It generates 80% of that itself through the interest payments that those women who borrow little loans pay back, or the profits that they make on the social businesses that they started, like a dairy, because a lot of women take cow loans, so they created the commercial dairy so that they got a better deal on their milk, or the retail chain store, because lots of women know how to embroidery beautiful products. So they take the profits from the hard-earned work of that woman and her family and combine that with about 20–30% of international aid from foundations, individuals and all, and roll it up into what is a very powerful development engine, a source of change for people's lives. It's working to make a difference at a significant level and over time, because these problems, they don't change quickly or fast. It's a generational shift that's required. So when I lived in Bangladesh, the women I met, well, they're probably like my age now. So it's their kids' lives. Are they better? And when I go back and I meet their kids, and they've actually been able to go not only just to high school, but some of them actually get scholarships to go to college, that's transformational change.
I was recently in Accra, Ghana, and while I was there, I was able to do a site visit of the Palms Project, one of our innovations that we've targeted for CGI this year. And while I was there, the founder and CEO of that project, Joseph Brenna, organized a community gathering so that I could not only see the facilities and learn how they work, but also talk to the women who were benefiting from the use of technology in farm production. And one of the striking observations was when I was shown the grinding mill. This is not a new technology, but it was new to the community. And what he showed me was the mill that was mechanized and used to grind the grain, and the old-fashioned grinder that women used to grind by hand. And I was able to see, demonstrated to me, the difference in the time it took to achieve the desired outcome using the mechanized versus the by hand product. And the women told me what a difference it made to their lives to be able to grind in 15 minutes what it used to take them a full day to grind. And as a result of that, they were able to focus on other aspects of production and marketing of the increased yield, and said that their whole lives had been transformed because of that.
As the 21st century unfolds, an emerging crisis looms with the increasing scarcity of clean, safe drinking water and adequate sanitation. The impact of the water crisis will be felt globally, already contributing significantly to child mortality and posing real problems between have and have-not nations.
There absolutely is a world water crisis, and it is getting worse as world population increases from the 6.5 billion we are to the 9 billion that we're becoming by 2050. And more people are also trying to live middle-class lives, which means middle-class diets, which are also very water intensive and also very water polluting as a result. What is essentially happening is that the voracious demand for water for development, and we're using water at twice the rate of population growth. That is, water use doubles as for each person that we're adding to the world population. We are extracting more water from ecosystems that are being replenished by the water cycle in more and more places. So there are 70 or so major rivers around the world where the water no longer really reaches the sea, and their deltas, once very fertile land supplying food for those regions, have drying up. Many of those rivers also don't have enough water in them to produce energy for hydropower, for cooling fossil fuel plants that power industries. So what we are seeing across the world society is polarizing into water have and have-not societies. And in the have-not societies, the lack of water means that there is not enough water in many cases to grow the food that they need to feed their populations, to produce the energy needed to power the populations. There are 2.6 billion people in the world that don't have access to adequate sanitation and therefore suffer a great deal of illness. 40% of the world population, and there's nobody believes that we're really making nearly enough headway on solving that problem. So little by little, people are beginning to recognize that water has a very important economic value, are beginning to figure out ways to try to measure that value, and once they start to do that, the potential for productivity increases is enormous. My view is that the United States is sitting on actually a golden opportunity because while we have many water problems in our country, we are one of the water richest countries in the world. We have 8% of the world's water, 4% of the world's population, and we have a temperate climate, which makes the water much easier to manage than it is in a monsoonal one. And we have an opportunity to produce many of the goods and the food, the water-intensive goods and water-intensive food that the water-thirsty world is going to be desperately needing. That will enhance our growth, our national growth. It will give us international leverage in the world because people need food and many of the goods that you can produce, and can help relaunch this country's international status while doing good for lots of parts of humanity. It's a win-win-win if we undertake to reform our own water markets.
The fourth topic addressed in the first season of Rainmakers will be global health. We will reveal the research and innovations in prevention and cure of some of the world's most significant health issues, including HIV/AIDS, malaria, tuberculosis, and cancer. The global impact of cancer related to tobacco use alone reaches close to $1 trillion a year, making it the most significant health issue of the 21st century.
We believe in our mission to be three parts. So first is the technological solution, and what does that look like in terms of addressing the need. The second is, can it be delivered in the health systems in that country or that region. And then thirdly is, what's the culturally acceptable and important behavior change that needs to occur. So that unless it's culturally acceptable, you might be able to deliver bed nets and you might be able to actually treat them so that they're long-lasting with insecticide, but unless you can convince people to actually use them, then their health value is limited. One of the critical issues in working with women is that particularly young women disappear from the health system in developing countries from literally the age of 5 until they are actually having a family or having children. That might be as early as the age of 14 or 15. But between 5 and 14 or 15, there's no systematic way to provide health services. And so you have to really think about how you can deliver basic services and other vaccines that aren't in that first 5 years of a child's life, and be able to really reach young women in an appropriate way. There are several really important areas that we think we can have an impact on. When we think about the next 5 years, we believe that they will be absolutely critical to global health. The Millennium Development Goals will be due in 2015, and the world has given additional attention and funding to global health, and I think that deserves, governments and the public sector alike really deserve a progress report. And so PATH believes that we can play a critical role in speeding up the progress, particularly around children's health. There's some tremendous work that's being done on a series of vaccines that will be available for children. The meningitis A vaccine, which is a terrible, terrible debilitator of children across 20 countries in Africa will be available through PATH by next January. It's a partnership with the World Health Organization. So I would say children's health and bringing both technologies and new programs to really that Millennium Development Goal around children.
It's not just the UN and it's not just the UN Foundation that are going to be key to our getting to 2015 and achieving the Millennium Development Goals. It's everyone. And that's the most exciting opportunity ahead of us. Every school child, every parent, every business should be concerned with how we get to 2015 and the goals are met. And Rainmakers TV has stepped up to this challenge. And I'm really grateful because you're showing that there's a way for people to learn more, to get engaged, and then to act on their passions. And then together we can all get to 2015 with a success story.